Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we are going to have a laugh attack. No, we are going to discuss the anxiety behind fixing a system you didn't create. This topic came up. I was trying to understand why there's such a visceral fear of fixing legacy systems, where it seems like the more senior a developer is, the more likely they're going to say this system is terrible, it's unfixable, and we need to do a rewrite. And what I have come to suspect is when you're a senior developer and you've got years and years of experience under your belt, you know a lot about writing software. You know a lot about maintaining your software.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to stepping into a piece of software that you didn't write and have not spent years maintaining, you're a novice. It's a skill that it takes time to develop, and people who are very good at refactoring, rewriting, or revising, and thesis shipping legacy systems have that skill.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't and have years of experience, it's an anxiety thing because, oh my gosh, all of a sudden you have the skills of a junior. It'd be like, hey, you've got 20 years development in Java, let's say, and now you have to support a program written in Ruby. And you've never, and you know nothing about Ruby. You could do it, but you're going to be for old period, you're going to be a very junior developer in Ruby on Rails, and it's going to be annoying and it's going to be frustrating, and you're going to immediately say, well, can't we just rewrite this Ruby app in Java because I know Java?
Right.
And I'm coming to the conclusion, the suspicion that part of the push for a rewrite is the anxiety of, if I take on this legacy system, this ball of mud, I'm going to be a junior developer again, and I don't like that feeling. It's anxiety provoking.
Yeah. And also, I think we talked about it in previous discussions before, but whenever you get to really old code and you're trying to, excuse me. When you get to really old code and you're trying to fix it again, you the instinct is you want to actually hit the ground running and make a change quickly to show that you're worth your value. So if you're new at the company, for example, not even just new to the project, once you see that, you're like, oh, let me just, I want to go ahead and we're going to clean this thing up. I'm going to show them, all my skills. And then wham, you just slam right into this wall of unfamiliar code or code done in a very different way than you'd normally do things. It certainly could be done in a very bad way or just a non-performant way. And so all your little tricks, your little tricks you learned, in your toolkit, then suddenly you're like, oh, well, I can't even write clean tests because this code is so, strangely written that, I have to mock half the stuff in my test just to make it pass. I can't refactor some of this code yet because it's too risky. And maybe there's 1,000 other things. I found one issue before where someone had actually merged pieces of 3 different PHP frameworks into their own custom one. And then what do you do with that? You don't have any of the documentation that would work with any of those frameworks you've merged, and none of the bug fixes or anything. So now, you're totally right in that you're a junior to that code.
To that code, you are a
brand
new
thing.
That is anxiety-inducing. If you want to prove yourself, you've now just hit a wall. And the fear of, oh, I need to prove, it's a new project, I need to prove myself, and I'm going to spend a few months releasing refactors that are going to loosen the coupling so that I can do tests, so that I can figure out what this code does, so that I can then fix the performance. That's a scary statement right there.
Yeah.
Right? That is very, that's what you should do. That is what you should do. You should thesis ship and incrementally change it so that you can understand what's going on and then improve it. But if you're new and you want to prove yourself, saying, I'm going to ship stuff every day, I'm going to have merge changes in every day, and those changes are going to have absolutely no impact for 3 months. That also feels scary. That's anxiety provoking.
Yeah, and the flip side is people who don't DC ship, they start pulling the thread, right? And then
Mhm.
they try to change one thing, and that leads to another change, and suddenly they have this big PR of like cascading changes they thought were like in the moment they were cleaning up, and suddenly it's too big and risky of a PR for someone to review or to approve.
Mhm.
And then if you're even further behind, you're 3 weeks behind, you still haven't merged any code in, then you're anxious because like, oh man, I still haven't shown any impact yet.
Right. And I think that sets up the bad dichotomy because if you're the more senior developer and the idea of having an impact, it sets you up for having a large change because like
Hmm.
it's extremely rare that a one-liner change is going to have a large impact.
Right. I think there's been plenty of times where I guess when I discussed working in monoliths with people, I think half the people who enjoy, well, let me just segment that further. The people that do enjoy working in monoliths, they do have that kind of lack of fear around changing it. Like they enjoy looking at other people's code. It's almost like an archaeology experiment where you can kind of dive in and see what came before. How do I like classify this? And it's a puzzle. Whereas other people might, some people like for example, I don't like writing new code. I like I like fixing other people's old code, and people don't believe me when I say that. But the
Yeah.
instinct is to I want oh this is a fresh opportunity. I can build my own REST API from scratch, or I can build this from scratch. And I don't like that. And people who do like that generally do like that because they have that freedom to design that. I got all my skills. The last job I built this and fixed this thing up. Now I'm ready to do that. No one can tell me what to do because this is brand new. No one can tell me about
Mm-hmm.
linting standards or pipeline standards or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and be scrappy with it and show what I can do.
Or they'll be
So
your standards because it's new.
you're right. Yeah. So the flip side is like now someone puts you on a REST API that someone built last year from scratch. I'm unfamiliar with the style. I don't like the way they've structured this. And
They
then
did
like
tabs instead of spaces.
or like they just made decisions that you felt like were stupid ones, but we had this conversation a while back about having empathy for other developers who
Mm-hmm.
have touched this. Like they probably made those decisions for a reason, or probably were rushed to deliver, so made really bad architecture decisions that served at the time. But now you're the one coming to fix it. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, as soon as you get in there, if it's unfamiliar standards, an unfamiliar framework, you don't know why things are the way they are or what decisions were made that led to someone to code it in this really weird way. Now all of your effort and energy is to spend the next month and a half or 2 months understanding a system before you can change it, and you're just really gunning to go to actually go
Right.
ahead and change it, and you can't.
Yeah, I've had many times where I've written something, especially in the earlier days of AWS when the cloud was new and shiny, and like there'd be this is the only way to do it because of constraints. Like it'd be I needed to store unstructured data and very large unstructured data, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to use, or sorry, it was very large structured like JSON. I needed documents.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, you need documents and you're on AWS. It's like, okay, you have these things. It's like, oh, these five choices. I'm like, okay, yes, but also they can go to like 10 megs of just of data. It's like, oh, well now there's one choice. Then
Right.
that choice is Postgres. But 5 years later, people are like, oh, well, why didn't you do blah blah blah? I'm like, well, it wasn't available. Well, how about we should
Mm.
use blah blah blah? Why didn't you do that? I'm like, it wasn't available. Like
That's a fun conversation too. Like the idea of like new technology emerging that would have been great to have when you
right.
first
I'm not
started.
arguing like that. Yes, this new
Yeah.
technology would have been better, would be better than the one that I used, but it wasn't available when I made the decision.
Why is this just
And,
built in EC2 or Elastic Beanstalk? Why didn't you use ECS or some other thing? Uh,
they weren't available. Elastic, yeah, Beanstalk might be have been available, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have supported 10 megs, 10 meg blobs. Like though, anyway, it gets back to when you have to do a legacy system refactor, you become a novice again, and I think developers don't like it, and especially it's not a well taught skill. I think you have to learn it by osmosis. Like I have a degree in computer science. There was not a single class on refactoring.
Yep.
Like
I
they,
think we had one of our other episodes we were kind of talking about like if we could go back, just I guess maybe not go back to college, or but like shape the college program so to speak. That would be one of the classes. Like working in other people's code and
mm-hmm.
refactoring would be such a great class to have. Maybe they have it these days. I don't know. I haven't checked in on the latest
I have not checked in.
university classes, but yeah, it was all just right. It was all just geared towards writing your new code in your style to turn into the professor to get graded. Which, you know, it's very rare that you join a company and you have complete creative domain to do whatever you'd like to do to a brand new project. You're always working in someone else's constraints. So I'm hoping that if there's some professors out there listening, they start trying to introduce a class about maintaining other people's code if it's not already a thing.
Right. I remember my recollection is that all the assignments had to be command line, and they had a test harness, and they would compile and run your program with the inputs and grade. It would auto grade against the outputs, and they didn't really look under the covers at all. And
The clever ones do.
look, but just in terms of just like this is homework. This is a homework assignment. It's
Yeah.
not like a graded test. So do the assignment and show that you did it. They didn't really care what it looked like, and because I remember I had like multiple classes on compilers, but no
Hmm.
classes on refactoring.
Yeah. And one of them is used a lot more. And
Yes,
there's
I've refactored a lot more code than I have written compilers.
exactly. Or also, in a previous episode, slightly off topic there too, but in the previous episode, we were also talking about like um, working in the business constraints with programming. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not really taught like right now. You turn in your assignment to the professor on the state. It will always be that due date. There's not going to be oops. There's a delay because of some change in schedule. You know, we know for certain that we will have our project delivered on this exact day, and there will never be anything weird that would pop up that would make our thing late. You know, so we don't
Right,
have
he's
that.
not. The professor's not going to add another 30 requirements the day before it's due, and then.
Right, exactly. Or say actually that doesn't solve the customer's problem. You know, you're technically right from what you turned in, but that's not what the customer needed. But that would be such a cool like fleshing out some kind of criteria that both shows that you can solve the problem and maybe ask the questions about like are you solving the right problem.
Mhm.
Stuff like that would be nice. But either way, getting off topic from the anxiety
Very off
part.
topic. Well, I think it's a great topic to segue into.
Yeah.
So if we're saying that part of the push to rewrite code comes from anxiety, and the anxiety comes from being inexperienced at refactoring code, what advice, what can we offer to the listener to reduce the anxiety, to brush up on their skills, or learn how to approach it, or get some practice?
Yeah. I think I would tell easiest way to frame it for me is like what would I tell my past self
Yes.
if I came into like really old code. And I think the first thing I would tell myself is not to panic. So
Mm-hmm.
you start panicking because like again for me, I would try to like what can I do to go ahead and show them I'm successful. So like don't rush it, don't panic, and instead just the first thing you need to do is just observe. So what I'd like to do, I would pair with other people who worked in that system
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to poke around and tell you a lot of other context faster than you can go through and dig through each line. And what does this database column mean? Well, now I've run into this variable. What is that used for? It's a lot easier just kind of like to, even if you walk through it by yourself, and then pair with someone after, you're just gonna get if you want to if your whole thing is I want to get productive fast, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not pairing with somebody and you're brand new to a company, what are you doing? So that would
Yes.
be don't panic, pair with people, observe more than you try to write, and then once you're familiar with the system, then you can try to make an impact.
I like it. My go-to, I feel like, method is fix inconsequential bugs or seemingly inconsequential bugs. Is a way to every any system that was messy we'll have a long tail of bugs that are recognized and reproducible and
Hmm.
documented and won't be fixed because no one's got the time and they're not important enough, they think. And that's a great place to start because that's going to show you just the rotten edges, and
Yeah.
it'll get there. It'll get you something to start with.
It might also make you build that momentum too. If it's just a
Mm-hmm.
small little change, at least you got a PR up now and you fix that small little change and you can kind of build on
Right,
that and not feel like you're not doing anything.
right. You can show the impact. I've closed this bug. I've closed this
Yeah.
bug. I fixed 5 customer issues this week. They weren't big issues, but I fixed something. I've got some impact.
They can tell that you're learning and growing in the system,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get more and more productive each day. So I like that. I like that one a lot. Actually, I'll include that one from now on.
Yeah, and if there is no backlog of bugs, which also I have encountered, the next thing I go for is I look at the logs and I find the exceptions and I fix the exceptions because most likely the exceptions are bugs.
That would make sense, but I do remember that story from last time where fixing exceptions accidentally made a system start working again that was broken for 2 years, and that caused a negative
It's
impact.
not risk free. It is definitely
It's
not
not
risk
risk
free.
free. You got to be careful too. So at least before you fix an exception, understand what will happen to if if it starts working. If you don't know what happens if it starts working, don't fix it.
I don't know.
Analyze first.
It's true that it can blow up on you, but I don't know if I would say don't use that as a reason not to do it.
I would use that for a reason to pair with somebody and
Yeah, fair.
understand it more, and then you could fix exceptions. Just don't blindly fix exceptions.
Yes. Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
That about
I
it
think
for
that's a
today.
great place to leave it. Awesome. Thank
Cool.
you for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.